Good evening, everybody. Welcome this Wednesday to A Flawed Man of God here to talk to you tonight. I am currently waiting on my guest, Kristin Gupta, aka Kristin Beale. She will be on, I'm assuming, momentarily, and I will let her on the stream. So that's the topic of conversation tonight. We are going to talk about her journey and her how that helped her grow in a faith perspective, what obstacles she had to overcome, both physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever. And I will let her go and explain as much as possible. If you are interested, she does have her own webpage, and you can easily find it through a search through any search engine. Will lead you to her page where you can look into, her books and whatnot. And when we get her on, I'll ask her if she prefers it, if you guys buy straight from her store, or if going through Amazon is okay. But I hear Amazon can be difficult to work with. Anyway, my name is Stuart Davis, and I'm a flawed man of God. I'm pretty much a nobody. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I am not a biblical scholar. I'm not a pastor. Haven't been to seminary. I'm not an expert on the faith, but what I have been is a Christian all my life. I've never walked away from faith. I've walked away from church before, but never my faith and love for Christ. And what I am trying to do here is basically offer exposure into the mind of a Christian, my thoughts and feelings on a wide range of issues, some relating to directly to Christianity and my faith, and some not so much. But there it is. If you are looking to establish a relationship with God, if you're looking to reach out and start a relationship with the church, start a membership at a church, I am not trying to get you to join my congregation. I'm not trying to get you to donate to any special cause. I'm just here to give you thoughts and feelings, and bring on other folks to get their perspectives and their experiences in life. And also want to hear from you. I want to hear about your journeys and your questions and your issues and your thoughts. I want to hear it all. And we do many things, like we have guests on, like Kristin, when she gets here. And also we have things like I'm doing a read through of the Bible, giving my thoughts and feelings. I feel like my best stream that I've done solo at all on Friday night. I did a solo stream Friday night, and I thought it went awesome. So Kristin's here real quick, so I'm gonna just bounce her on real quick. So.
Hey guys,
Kristin, how you doing?
I'm so sorry. I'm in my car. I had.
It's okay.
I'm here. Can you see me?
I can see you just fine. It's a little. There's the shadows, but we can see you just fine.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
You're all right. You're all right. So I'm just glad you can make it.
Good.
And how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. I'm a little flustered because I'm usually a lot better than this, but I'm good. I'm having a really good day.
Well, that's good. That's good. So just a brief introduction from my history, my knowledge and friendship with Kristin. Back in 2014, we joined the church that I currently go to, and I was taking part in the Sunday school, and Kristin was in that Sunday school small group, and she brought a lot of energy, and she brought a lot of honesty in what she talked about and how faith related to her. Now, me being a somewhat of an awkward person who sticks his foot in his mouth a lot, I saw that Kristin is in a wheelchair, and you might not know that from the camera, but she is. And so I never wanted to be that person to ask you, because I just feel like I would just come off as awkward and just ignorant, right? But Kristin is not afraid to talk about it. She's given the story before. I don't think I was ever there for it, so I don't know the full details, and I am interested in getting the whole story. But she has written a few books about it, how she has lived life, just as she is, and how her life has changed as she goes through the different seasons of life. And I, like I said, I feel like bringing bringing Kristin on when I reached out to her would be great, because she does offer such a positive perspective and such an honest perspective in how she approaches things. And so, Kristin, if you want to just, I guess, start from, a brief introduction of yourself, and then just get right into your story.
Mm-hmm. So my name is Kristin Beale. I am now Kristin Gupta, because I just got married, but I still introduce myself as Kristin Beale because it's a habit. So I'm Kristin Beale and Gupta, and I was hurt. I'm 31 years old right now. I was hurt in 2005 in a jet ski accident when I was about to turn 15, and I was about to be a sophomore in high school. So I went to Lake Gaston with 3 of my friends. I had a girl that I grew up with in youth group, and I had a boy that I met the weekend before that I had a really big crush on, and I had a new friend. I went to the lake with them, and we had a fun weekend, I guess. I don't remember it because I have short-term memory loss, but at the end of the weekend, we split up on the 2 jet skis. Where Field, the boy that I had a really big crush on, was driving the jet ski behind mine, and I was driving with Mark, my new friend, and Field wasn't paying attention, and he rode up on top of Mark and I. And Mark, the driver of my jet ski, fell forward and died on impact. And I was turning around saying, "What is that noise? Slow down." And it hit me on the left side of my brain and my spinal cord. So I have traumatic brain injury, and I have a spinal cord injury right below my rib bones. So Mark was dead. I was in the water, floating, face up, thank God. They took me and they said, "She's not going to live. She's going to live a couple hours." They called my parents and said, your child is, going to die," which I can't imagine that phone call. "Come and say goodbye to her lifeless body." Not lifeless body, but comatose body. So they came to North Carolina because this was at Lake Gaston, and to say their goodbyes. And I lived past the initial hours that they said that I was going to die. And then they told my parents she's not dead. So if she does live, she has a traumatic brain injury, so she's not going to be able to breathe on her own or talk or swallow independently. She's going to be a vegetable. And if she's also, on top of all that, she's not going to be able to feel or move below her injury level, because I have spinal cord injury, which is right at these rib bones that stick out. So there I am, a vegetable in bed. I don't remember this, of course. But this was at Pitt Memorial Hospital in North Carolina. Okay, and so after about a month of staying there, they transferred me. I live in Richmond, Virginia, so they transferred me over to MCV, the critical care unit in Richmond, Virginia, so I can be closer to home. And I was stable enough to be transferred. Okay, so they transferred me over here. I stayed in MCV critical care for about another month, and then I went to Children's Hospital because I was 15 now, because I had my birthday when I was in the hospital, and that's where I spent 3 months. That's where I started waking up. I came to around early October. I had short-term memory loss because of my traumatic brain injury, but I started to wake up and talk, and my memory started coming back around late October. So one of my first memories was Halloween in the hospital, which is just about as fun as it sounds.
Yeah.
Probably
a little creepy.
Yeah. So my 2 of my really good friends came to the hospital, and I was rolling around at that time. We gave out candy to all the kids, like a reverse trick-or-treating kind of thing. So that was my first memory. So that was cool. But backing up a little bit, when I came to, they told me, "You're not going to," like they didn't tell me anything. I couldn't feel below my, I'm going to call it mid torso. And so that kind of, I'm not saying shattered me. The part that really kind of affected me was the fact that I can't feel below there. So that means that I can't walk anymore. I can't play sports anymore. I can't feel from the bottom of my feet anymore. That kind of broke me. I lost my independence at that time because before my accident, before all this happened, I was captain of my lacrosse team. I was a competition cheerleader, and I was a field hockey player. I've been athletic my whole entire life. I don't really know what my life looks like without athletics. So the biggest part that affected me was you're never going to walk. So that means you're not going to be able to play sports anymore. And like the gym is your new sport. Like good luck. You're going to sit in a chair and probably get fat. They didn't say this part, but I'm saying this to myself. You're probably going to get fat because you're going to be inactive and like have a nice life. So anyway, they said that they told me about the paralysis, and that's where I started to use. I've always had faith in God since I was a kid growing up in the youth group, and I've always kind of known who God is, but that's when my faith became applicable, because it was really easy to have faith when my life is very easy. I'm athletic. I have a lot of friends. I have a good family. But when I got in this accident, I really had to use my faith. I had to trust God for maybe the first time, and I had to actually apply what I've learned my whole life. And that was hard, not as hard as it could have been because I had that foundation, but my faith kind of became real at that time. And a lot of people can turn away from God or say, why me? Or, why did this happen? And be really sad about it, or really angry about it. But I had the foundation of that, of my faith. I had people, my friends and my family around me that kind of said, this is what happens. This is what you can't do. But look at what could have happened. You could have been a vegetable. You could have been not being able to breathe on your own. Kind of looking at the alternatives is what kind of, in the beginning, what kind of brought me out of my why me or my anger. So I never really went through an anger phase because I had that perspective. And also my parents said, you are in the hospital right now, but they were researching ways, because they said I disproved all the not talking, not breathing, all that stuff.
Yeah, clearly.
While a minute, but
Right.
but they said I'm not going to feel them below my mid torso. So my parents said, well, yeah, she is. Like, she can do all this other stuff you said she can't do. Who says that she's not going to feel or move? Like, she can do that. So they have been researching, I guess, rehab facilities for neurological disorders. They found a place called Project Walk in California. They have other locations, but in California. And they said that my parents said, you're in this hospital. It sucks, but learn how to do enough so that you can convince them that you can leave, and we'll go to California and you'll work out and we'll get out of here. We'll blow this joint. So I got out of the hospital. My accident was August 28th, 2005. I got out of that hospital December 13th, 2005. And on January 1st, I was landing in Carlsbad, California, where I worked out 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, lost my mind, working out. Came back, I could wiggle my toes, which is incredible because they diagnosed me a complete injury, which is no feeling and no sensation below my injury. I came back, wiggle my toes. I already proved them wrong, on one of the biggest parts. So that's kind of where my journey began. And there's so much more. I'll take a breath. Is there?
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's a good part to kind of stop and ask some questions. And you answered some of them that I had along the way as well, because like, what was your faith like beforehand? And you had kind of the same thing I had, where, you grew up, you had your faith and it was just part of your life, but it was kind of at arm's reach, or just something that you did and you didn't quite grasp it as we generally do as kids. We're just, this is just what we've been around all our lives. Right. And then you have that moment. Now, my moment was when I was 17 and somebody had taken me aside and sat me down. Yours was more abrupt, if it sounds like. And again, I mean, yeah, you talk about your parents for the accident. I couldn't imagine that if it was one of my kids getting that phone call and then rushing down there. But the relief that you passed this point where they said you were going to die. And then, and I guess that leads me to my next question. When you woke up, were you still hooked up to machines? Did you still need assistance breathing? And how was that?
When I woke up, I had let's see, I wasn't hooked up to any machines, but I had like I had a trach to help me breathe when I was in the coma because I couldn't breathe on my own for a while. So I had a trach in my neck. So when I woke up, I had a placeholder because they were starting to. I know this makes me do that too.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
they were starting to shrink it down so they could eventually take it out. So I wasn't using anything actively, but I had like the remnants of it. But I dealt with that placeholder trach in my neck for probably like 2 months out of 3 of being in the hospital, and that makes me ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Like
sure you were incredibly relieved when you were able to kick that thing to the curb.
yeah.
So so you wake up and or I guess you start remembering things. But one of the things that kind of amazes me, and this is from me from a veteran standpoint, and just there's a lot of folks in my community who have um paralysis or lost limbs and a lot of traumatic brain injuries, a lot of PTSD, a lot of trauma and shock. And while while there's violence inherent in it, it's something that we do just because of the nature. It's a volunteer organization. We know what we're getting into. You should, in theory, know the risks before you get in. I mean, we know that jet skis can be dangerous, but nobody really thinks of it as being that dangerous, especially at the age you were at. It's just like, hey, we're getting on the jet skis, we're going to zoom around, we're going to have a bunch of fun. Nobody thinks that one's going to collide with the other. So, whereas what I appreciate about what you are talking about here is the fact that you are coming from this, and it feels like you were kind of down, and you were depressed about the situation, but you immediately leaned on God. And I'm sure your parents were helping you and support you in that matter, but you didn't blame him. And that's something, or just say he's not there, I wouldn't have been in this situation, because you did come from that life where everything was nice. You had friends, you were athletic, you were popular, you could do things like go down to Lake Gaston and ride on jet skis. Whereas, folks who understood risks when they got into something, went to a place knowing it was dangerous and suffered these injuries, they come back and they think, and the world falls apart on them, and they feel like God's abandoned them, and they've seen all this stuff. I think some of that is part of seeing the horrors of war and seeing kind of mankind at its worst. But at the same time, we know that this stuff goes on, and it's just like I willingly went into this, whereas you were kind of just it was kind of thrown at you, and you took, and at a kind of an age where we can all admit we're immature. It made you grow up quick, but it seems to me like, and you handled it, as well as, to me, it seems like as well as Christ could ask of us to handle something like that. And I think that's commendable. I think, and that's, again, that's part of your attitude that I think that so many people can pull from that. And like I said, I'm sure your parents were like, and because they seem like very very close parents, like, and that y'all have a good relationship, that they were like, all right, we've got our daughter back. We thought she was lost. The doctors told us she was lost, and she's just breaking the odds and everything. And we're going to do whatever we can to support her. We're sending her off to California and everything. That they're with you along the way to help you out. And it's just gratifying to see that, and that that your story is such a positive one. So at what point, I guess, so you're in California, and you're kicking butt, and with this situation that you've been dealt. But at what point, obviously you come back sooner than that, or you come back at some point. What happens, or I guess what point did you say, all right, I've finished my time here in California at this location, it's time to go home? And where do you go from there?
So I stayed in California for a month and a half, working out 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. My whole world is working out and rehabilitation and myself. I am my whole world, rightly so, at that time, because I needed that. So I go home, and it is halfway through my sophomore year of high school. So I was in California and I was being tutored, homeschooled, whatever you want to call it, on the first half that I missed. I came back to school the first day of spring semester, and I was going half days at school. I was going a half day doing second semester material, and then I was leaving at lunchtime and doing first semester material, and working out, 2 hours 3 times a week. And I was just kind of trying to juggle. It was a very big juggle of, this is my rehab disability me life that I need to have, and like I'm reemerging back into normalcy and like into the world and with my peers. And it's kind of like my peers are all excited about or their whole world is school and boys and crushes and eventually prom, and my whole world is like learning how to brush my teeth, pull up my pants when I'm in my chair, like go to the bathroom by myself and all this stuff. And I'm kind of like at square one where everyone else is at square 200.
Right.
So it was a lot of merging into that, and it's also trying to fit in with my peers, like my friends, because before my accident, when I had very athletic, lots of friends, all that stuff, I lost a lot of friends with my injury, which is understandable, because we were all very immature and I didn't know how to handle myself. And so expecting them to learn how to handle me, I can't really do that, because I'm still trying to figure out myself too. So it's the balance between that, trying to figure out where I want to be, and do I even want to merge back into these people and into this lifestyle, or am I okay just like focusing on me and keeping my friend group small and close and doing what I need to do? The second was my answer, whether I had the choice or not, because my friends just kind of floated away. So that's
now. Right. And that's that incident. And when we say it forces you to grow up and forces you to deal with some very real emotions and some very real realities. Is that the invincibility factor that that we feel, especially when our teens and our 20s. I've said it on the stream before. It's like when early 20s, you might be the worst person you ever are. Just because you're old enough to think that you know more than all these teenagers and folks, and that these old folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and whatever, that they're just old and they don't get it. You've got it all figured out, and then you look back 10 years later and you're like, but you're in a different space, you're in a different headspace. So did you have that problem, I guess, in high school still? Rehabbing with all this, because at 15 you still got a couple more years, years less of high school. Did you feel like you're like, man, these other kids, they're just they're kids, and I'm kind of somewhere in between of being a kid and being adult, where they're just basically stuck in high school, right? That's what we say now that we're older. But how did that?
I'm dealing with things that I would never wish on anyone, an adult, that most adults haven't gone through. I always say that if there is a good time to have a disability, have an accident, then 14 was a good time, because I was able to take off of high school. I was young. I had a younger body. I was athletic, all that stuff. But socially, it was a nightmare, because, like I said, I was immature. My friends weren't. Well, I was immature in that sense, I guess, to start with. My friends were immature. They didn't know how to accept me. I'm like, I feel like I'm having such a grown up experience and moment, but I can't really relate to these people. Like I'm having trouble merging into a life of prom and a life of crushes on boys and homework, and that's the only things in my life, but in their lives. But I just can't really relate. And I went through that. I had that mentality, I would say, until I graduated college, because college was a little bit the same of like, my life, like their life is drinking and partying, and college and schoolwork is the only thing. It's the most important thing on their mind. Like, bless their hearts. That's awesome. That's a great time.
Exactly. Bless their hearts. They don't get it.
But I'm like going to California on spring break, and I mean, on summer break, and trying and like rehabilitating to try to, feel my toes again, wiggle my toes. And it's just on a different level. So I related a lot to adults a little bit more than people my age, which made it was another level of difficulty in merging in, because I'm kind of like on this different plane, and some adults aren't even on my same mindset, and it's just kind of, there was a lot of loneliness, and a lot of learning to love myself and finding confidence in where I am and kind of having patience with myself. And those were the most valuable and precious lessons that I ever learned, because it built my confidence and it got me patience with myself. And I'm probably, my husband said, "You're the most confident person that I've ever met, Kristin." And I'm like, well, it came with a lot of struggle and
a lot of if it's not natural, it usually comes through quite a gauntlet.
Sucked to get here. So yes, it was very much a struggle, and an imbalance. I've just kind of felt like an imbalance with people my age for a long time, until I graduated college, and then we're all kind of adults, and at this point, everyone's kind of going through something. But
I imagine that a lot of times that you feel like, you're in a social setting with people who either are your friends or were your friends, or when you get in college, people you don't know, and sometimes you feel like, well, I'm just the girl in the wheelchair, and that's kind of, and that can be a lonely place. I'm certain. So you lean. It seems to me, and from what you say, you lean on God heavily. So circling that into here, bringing God into that discussion, those late teens, early 20s, when you're finishing high school and going through college, where does God where does God fit in with that for you?
Very nicely. He fits in very nicely, because when I went to college, my freshman year of college was the worst year of my life. It was punctuated by loneliness and tears. I went to college, and I'm in this new group of people who didn't know me before my accident, my whole story. They didn't have a reason to love me, I guess. We didn't have any history. So I'm meeting them for the first time as a paralyzed person. And that's just what I am. They didn't know me before or after. And I'm also on the same vein. I'm not fitting in with them because I'm not going to party. I'm not going to frat parties. One, because they're inaccessible. Two, because people spill beer on my head. And like, three, I'm just not really.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to meet people. And I'm just like the girl in the wheelchair that everyone has seen, because there was a small campus. Everyone has seen, so everyone kind of knows of me, but they just know me as like the girl in the wheelchair who is in a wheelchair. So I had a really hard time making friends and fitting in. I spent every weekend at home. When I wasn't at home, I was in my room, like crying, a lot of tears. It was just very alone. I felt very alone. And so the end of freshman year happened, summertime, and I said, I am not going back to school. I'm not doing that again. Like, I'm not gonna live that year again. I have to do something different. So I went back to school. I'm not gonna live my school year like that. So I went back to school.
Okay. I was about to say, and that was, I guess that's a question there too. At what point do you go, I can't do, I don't want to do this? Is there a point where you say, I don't want to go back to school? I just want to just quit school because this is not fun. This is not healthy. I need to just quit and do something else. Or did you say, no, I need to double down and change my own outlook and my own situation there?
So I never lost hope in the college education part, but I lost hope in myself socially fitting in. So I said, I want to go back to school because I want to graduate, and I like the academic part of it, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to force myself to. It was never really an option. I mean, I'm glad it wasn't, because I would have probably maybe opted to that at that time. But it was, I know that college are the best years of your life, and this is supposed to be very fun. There's potential here, but that was hell. Like, that was terrible. So I need to, how could I change myself or my approach so that I have fun and I don't do that again? So I said to myself that I'm going to join clubs. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to meet people, because literally I could have not gone back sophomore year of college, and nobody would have like mist after me. I didn't make any friends. It was dark.
I'd be like, oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went back and I joined university. I went to the first meeting of university, which is like the small group Bible study weekly meetings on our campus. So I went back university. I started to meet like-minded people. I started to meet people who were accepting of me and had the same thought process as me. And I learned, oh, this girl also spent weekend nights in her apartment, like other people on campus. I wasn't the only person on campus who's like miserable and sad and alone. She also was there. And I found you, and I found this person, and I started like being with these people and making friends with these people who were accepting of me, even though I'm just like girl in wheelchair. And I see that I'm able to be Kristin again, because for that very dark freshman year, I'm just kind of like a recluse, and I'm just in my room, and I just didn't feel like Kristin. And because I'm a very outgoing, talkative, smiley,
Oh,
if
yes.
I'm nothing else, I'm like a ball of energy and enthusiasm, but I wasn't that at all freshman year. So I started to make friends at this university meetings, and I started to be Kristin again. I started to go out on the weekends. I would go out and I would go to my friend's apartment from that I met at university, or their dorm, and I saw, people are having fun and they're doing stuff, and I don't have to get very drunk or like do hard drugs to like be out on the weekend nights. This is really cool. I like college now. So that mentality, that opening, I guess, of myself continued until senior year of college, when I graduated. And when I graduated, I could get to the point where like I have friends, and they look out for me, in the sense that like I could never come back, and I would have people calling me, or I would have people missing me, because
Right.
I forced myself to get out there. I started with a good foundation of like, these are godly people who are accepting me, and just maybe because they're just good people, or maybe I think it's because they had like some faith and some background, that they're good to me. Like they're good
No,
people,
yeah.
and they kind of brought me out again.
It seems like, so because your first memory is handing out candy and everything and participating. So it seems like you go through this phase where, you're happy to be alive and that you've survived this and you're relatively intact. Well, a couple of issues, but you're alive, right? And so you're happy and everything. But then, as time progresses, you're in this situation now. So then you seem like you're really down on yourself and everything. But now after that freshman year of college, which I guess sounds like rock bottom in that aspect, you're on the mend, and you're coming back up. And your husband talking about confidence, I'm sure that's very confident building, that you're making friends. And it's not because you're athletic. It's not because everybody sees you playing sports. You're doing this based on personality and personality and whatever alone. So that's got to be so refreshing. So, and you say that, God plays a big key role in that, because he's leading you through, like, it sounds like with your faith and everything, you get the confidence to say, no, I'm not going to let life just ruin this experience for me. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to do something different. And immediately you find connection. Once you make that decision, you make that connection with a small group of Christians. You're doing it in a relatively wholesome way, sounds like. And things just start to get better. And not to say that your things are getting better because God's happy with you, but things are getting better because you're starting to walk that path. Your headspace is getting better. Your spirit is getting better. I think this is when maybe you're physically, you've already done a fair amount of healing, but spiritually and mentally, you're really, that's where you're really coming back.
Yeah. It's kind of just like the hope, I guess. This is going to sound cliche, but like the hope for something more, because I know that through not only like God promises a good life, but like I know that from my pre-accident life, like it's just so much fun, and it's just, there's so much richness and so much love and joy and all that stuff that can come out of life. And so I got how I did freshman year of college. And after, in the summer, I said, this is like, there's so much, this is also a foundation of my confidence now. There's so much potential for happiness, and like there's so many things in the world that God puts in my path, whether people or things, that like my mentality now is life is so fun and I have so much potential to be happy. Why would I ever like not be happy? And I know that like life can also suck sometimes, but it's just like there's so many people, and there's so much potential to like find happiness in bad things. And like I feel like I've gone through the worst thing, hopefully, that I'll ever go through, and I still have happiness. So why would I ever not be happy? I know that.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I know. I feel that way too. And I think, and I don't know, because again, we come from a similar background and being born Christians and never really having a faith struggle. You know, maybe it's tested, especially like in your case, and I've had parts where it's definitely been tested, but at the same time, it's just like your relationship with God feels like it's so natural. It's just always there with you. And, you know, and even that when maybe you don't appreciate him as much and you might take it for granted because he's not on your mind. But once you get to that moment where you realize he's very involved, he's still right next to you, and you still feel it still feels natural, but it feels so much closer. And that, you know, those things happen and you're like, thanks for that. I appreciate that. I get I get where you're trying to point me on this, and I'm going to do what I can to keep going this way that you're clearly guiding me to.
Which are the cool moments. They're rare and far between where it's clearly like, I see you, God, like that was really cool. But it's just like in the moments where it's not clear, like I can't correlate directly like what God has done and what's happening. It's like, that's the faith of like, I'm just like in this for the long run. I'm running a marathon here, and I'm just going to figure out what to do. And I know that it's rooted in a good place. It's rooted in my faith. So even though I might not see exactly what's happening, like I feel it, and it's
right. So the accident's in 2005, and you finished college, or I'm sorry, and you're 15. So graduating college, 21. So that's about 6 years later. So that's about 2011.
2012.
Ish. Okay. And like I said, I ran into you in 2014. So there's a short break there, but I'm pretty sure you had already written your first book when I'd met you. So let's get to that. At what point, when did the idea of writing a book hit you, and walk us through the book, walk us through the
process,
genesis of the book that you for your first book.
Genesis. So I went back, flipping back to high school real quick. I came back in the middle of the year. Wanted to take an easy class because I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm traveling to California, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I got a lot on my plate. So I took a creative writing class because heard the teacher is kind of a slacker and is creative writing. So, you know, I thought this would be, you know,
I need that W. I need that easy win.
Exactly. Like you can't really grade me wrong on creative writing. So I took this class. Turns out that I love it and I'm pretty good at it. And it's a very good outlet for me for all these new things that are going on in my life. And just like a way to process it. So I start writing, and every new thing I did, every place I went, I would just write a story, you know, save it on my computer, forget about it, not think about it. So flash forward to 2013, I believe. 2013. I have 32 stories that nobody knows I've written. I'm just writing them on my own. And in the best Christmas present I'll ever give anyone, I self-published a book for my parents and my grandparents, just like, here's all, in my sister, and here's all my stories. You know, you didn't know I was writing them, but you can relive them with me. So I give them this book for Christmas. And then when I do, still in my mind, who publishes a book for real? No one really does that. You know, it's a way to have, but I have a part-time job. So I'm just going to like start working on it. So I love this process of self-publishing, writing for the book for the self-publish. So I just took it. I just kept going and I refined it. I wrote some more. I cut some out. I went to an editor and I did the work, still thinking, who actually publishes a book? I'm just doing this just because.
It's almost a hobby at this point.
Yeah, it's 100% a hobby. And so I finished the draft of Greater Things, and I start pitching to publishers and publishing companies and literary agents. Still, like, it's never going to work, but whatever. I got extra time. I only work 4 hours a day, so I can do this. And I'm pitching. I was keeping count at one point, but I stopped keeping count somewhere in the 600s. Emails that I'm sending, I'm just getting rejections or getting ignored back, but for whatever reason, I'm still doing it, and I just like haven't given up. And like, wow, that's one thing right there. And so I published. So then, out of complete boredom, nothing but boredom, I bought the KristinBeale.com, and I let people know about it. Just, here's what I'm doing. No one knew I was a writer, but I'm doing something kind of cool. Maybe I was bored, had nothing else to do. Maybe there's someone will have a network. Maybe that'll happen. So I published that, and within a month, somebody saw KristinBeale.com, knew I had a good story. They were friends with my dad, and he knew the owner of Morgan James Publishing, which is a company out of Hampton and New York and Australia. So he said, "Hey, Kristin Beale, you should check her out." So the owner of Morgan James, reached out to me, which is not heard of. And he said, "Hey, I got your contact. Want to hear your story, whatever." So I met with him the next week. And he was if there ever was a perfect publishing company to contact me. I mean, there are hundreds of perfect companies to contact me, but Morgan James has been the best. So it's not a Christian company, but everyone has all in Christian values. It's not a Christian company, meaning they publish fiction, nonfiction, kids books, but I mean, they're all Christians, and it's a clean publisher, so you can't publish cuss words, or you can't blast God or anything. So it has Christian values. Anyway, so I started writing with them, and I published Greater Things, and which was terrifying because I wrote all those stories just for me, not for anyone else. So I'm being complete for me and my family. So I'm being completely open, exposing myself completely because I have nothing to lose. And then I get this potential for a book deal, and it's terrifying because it's like everybody is going to know every detail of the last 11 years of my life. But I publish it because I have a story to tell, and I have a testimony. I'm publishing my testimony in a book, and I have people that I can reach. And it's still terrifying, but the result was people saying, reading my faith process throughout this big tragedy, and saying, it motivated me, or it inspired me to, grow my faith in God, or, I saw what you did, and I, just other people's feedback, just sharing my story. So that kind of set it off.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and look, trust me, I get it right now doing this YouTube thing where I'm talking about my personal feelings and God and everything, and I'm putting it all out there. It's like, man, this is stuff that I might talk about with friends, and now I'm talking about it, and anybody can just find it and just go, look at this dude, look at this stupid stuff that he thinks or whatever, and they can laugh at it but maybe they find it helpful. And it sounds, and again, you have an inspiring story, and now you've put it on paper. And look, it's an inspiring story that furthers, hope and faith. And what happens? You end up, like you said, getting paired with probably the perfect, the perfect publisher for what you need, what your story needs. And how is that? Because somebody was friends with your dad and sent it up, and the owner comes out and reaches out to you. And those are like your big God moments. Like, wow, this all came together. And, it didn't have to happen that way. You could have easily, again, I feel like I've said it a couple times throughout here. You could have easily just given up. You could have easily just let this whole thing at several points just get to you after it happened. You could have, or in college, you could have just, you could have chickened out about the books. Once somebody, once this guy reached out to you, you could have been like, no, it was fun. And now it's getting real. It's getting very real really fast.
Yeah.
But again, that probably takes us up for when we were in Sunday school together. And you were working on Date Me, and I think you you were releasing Date Me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I knew you, and you were at that, at that point in your life, because you're in your 20s, and you've gotten past the education. You've published a book, so you've got kind of your place from a professional or an identity point from that place. And now you're starting to think of relationships, and that's starting. And it seemed to me, just from when you were talking, that it was something that was weighing heavy on your mind, and understandably, there are some obstacles about that.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
So speaking of how fun vulnerability is, that it was terrifying, but it's vulnerable. So my second book, you referred to Date Me. My second book, I quit my job a month before Greater Things came out. Just like, I don't like mortgage banking. Like, God help me, carry me through this. I'm going to be a full-time author. So 3 months after Greater Things came out, my first book, the money stopped. The money started drying up. So I said, I either have to get another job or publish another book. So what is something I do a lot of, I know a lot about, I can publish my second book on. And it was going first dates, which all happen to be bad. So I updated my dating profile on Bumble, a dating app. I went on, I made a rule to myself, I will not say no to any dates that were offered to me. And I went on 32 dates in 2.5 months, which I wouldn't recommend that to anyone ever. But I was writing a book. It was research. Okay. So I went on all these dates. I changed their names. It's a comic book, so I made comics out of them. And with the exception of two guys who like lived on the other side of the country or like ended up ghosting me, they were all very rude, like asked too many questions, like very sexualized, like very different levels on there. Or just like we're bad in some other way. My dates were bad in some other way. And so I made a comic I just changed her name and made a comic, and I got my Taylor Swift revenge. And I have been called the Taylor Swift of comics. I'm the one who called myself that, but still.
Yeah.
And I published Date Me, which is a comic book about dating in a wheelchair. And now, and so, which kind of exposes like the struggles of being in a wheelchair, the very relatable struggles, and then also this terrible thing, which is dating as a young person these days.
Right.
Which is very relatable. But then I have the wheelchair part of it, which makes it like gives me an edge, but it's also relatable in some ways. So it kind of, I'm trying to kind of like normalize myself and kind of show people I'm just like you. I go through all the same crummy stuff you do dating.
With a twist.
But I just like am sitting down. Like that's the only difference. So that book came out. It was a success, and it's now being turned into a TV show.
Is it really?
The first episode is on YouTube. If you search Date Me.
Oh, I'm going to put the link in then. I'll put the link in the description.
You can watch episode 1. We're raising money, doing all that stuff for the rest of the season. But episode 1 is free and on YouTube. And so that's really fun. And that also came out when you met me. And when that book came out, I had a boyfriend. So is that the result of Date Me? I'm like, absolutely not. I don't recommend dating apps to anyone because that's not how I met them. But anyway, boyfriend's over and I'm married now to a different guy. But anyway, the struggle of dating is real for everyone.
Oh yeah, and like I said, and I guess that comes in with another daunting task, because I don't envy folks who are, and you are over 5 years younger than me, because the dating scene changes dramatically. Me and my wife, we were friends long before we started dating. For several years before we started dating, we knew each other, and we had talked about a relationship before, and we just didn't. And then everything came together, God moment, right? Everything came together, and here we are, 2 kids, and
nice.
How many years? Many years later. And there it is. But nowadays, even when in the 2010s and to 2010 to 2020, and nowadays it's just like we've become so socially detached. Everything's with a mobile phone, everything's online. People don't meet the same way. And then so it's already a struggle. I've heard it from many people. How do I meet people? How do I meet people at this age? Even folks older than me who are single and looking are saying, how do I meet people? How do I go out and meet people? Because we're just not a society.
And my answer is the old-fashioned way. Go to church. I met my husband in church, and
oh, did you? Good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dating apps didn't. I think I met the only person who wasn't on a dating app, didn't know what Bumble was, just completely off of that. Because I thought it was a necessary evil, and then some dating, which is I thought it was necessary evil because how else do you meet people as an adult, except for a dating app? I was totally wrong. But then at the end, when I deleted the dating app because I was just so tired of it, which I did every other day because it's exhausting and it's terrible. I deleted it, and I go to church in the morning, and he stole my seat, and he signed up for my Bible study at my house 2 weeks later, and
he stole your seat.
Yeah, he stole my seat. And he stole my seat. So I said, who is this attractive guy sitting in my seat? He's probably married, waiting on his wife, has a girlfriend. I don't know, attractive. In my head, young attractive guys don't go to church alone. Because I didn't know what I was talking about, obviously, because they do. So he stole my seat, and I thought that I played it really cool and didn't mention that or anything, but he says that within the first 30 seconds of talking to you, Kristin, I knew that was your seat, and what are you doing? Where did you come from? Anyway, I got him, and he stole my seat. He came to my house 2 weeks later for a Bible study that I lead out of my house, so he made it impossible to.
Oh, those are so valuable, and thank you for doing that too. And the reason I got connected to that church, and I'm in the place I am, and came back to church, was largely because of that small group that that our friend Jason and Grace had put together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other thing. You were in our group, and I think you were one of the only young singles in our Sunday school group too. So I understand that, because it's a hard thing to relate to when everybody else is in a different part. Again, you were great. You were an awesome person to discuss God about. But when you're looking for connection, sometimes that can be difficult. And like you said, it's, you get to it, and there's this guy, and you're interested in him, and you're like, there's no way he's available, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Comes together.
The theme of my life, and the theme of what I want people to take away is just jump in, just jump in the deep end, just try things. Don't say no. You never know. This sounds cliche, but you never know what God is going to throw at you, and just opening up your mind and just doing stuff until something lands.
Yeah. My wife is famously tells me, give it over to God. Things when I've struggled, and I've gone through some times where I've personally struggled, or been going through a time where I'm just facing a lot of adversity. Give it over to God, and I fight that so much, because I'm so much. It's no, I have to do this. I have to do this. But kind of what you said, when we were kids or young adults, if you're struggling with relationships, they'll tell you, well, just stop trying. That's when it happens, is when you stop trying. And like you said, I deleted the dating apps. I did that whole thing, and it's just I was over it. And then you just show up to church to Sunday school one day, and there's the dude, and here you are,
which is so annoying. When it'll come to you, and it'll happen when you least expect it. I'm I haven't expected it for 10 years, and it hasn't happened. I
remember you saying that too at one point.
Oh, it's so annoying. And then I'm you're right. Dang it, you're right.
Exactly. Well, that's good. And so you write Date Me, and which seems like it's kind of therapeutic for you as well.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Greater Things is therapeutic in its own way, and it's you putting your story out there. Date Me, it seems like you're dealing with some other frustrations, more pedestrian frustrations when it comes relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got a third book out now, so that's A Million Suns.
So, all right. So, Greater Things was kind of like, here's my tragedy. You might cry. You will laugh. You like, whatever. Date Me is like, see, I can be fun. I'm normal too. Like, you're only gonna laugh in this one. And and A Million Suns, my most recent one, is kind of like, the theme is like trying to rediscover the passions that I lost with with my injury, with my disability. So that for me is centered around sports because I'm a very sports oriented person. So I try a bunch of sports. Um, trying all the things to see what lands. I find hand cycling. I just did my 14th marathon this year. I found fencing. I'm a nationally competing wheelchair fencer, and I meet Christopher, my husband. We kind of have a story of how we met. There's kind of a story behind there, and it's stories that are relatable, and you see the struggle that I deal with on an everyday, which is like doesn't really feel like a struggle to me because it's just what I do.
It's natural now.
But you see the difference, but you also see the relatability. Like I am very much, I'm harping on the fact that like I'm a normal person. I'm just a girl that like something crummy, in quotes, happened to. I'm just sitting down and I'm just struggling just as much as everyone else, but it just looks a little different. But I'm very much like a normal person. That's another quoted thing, but I'm just like a normal person, just with different struggles. And so showing that, and then showing again in all my books, like how my faith impacts that and how I'm able to keep going and, keep going and keep trying, and kind of what keeps me pushing is my faith and is
Mm-hmm.
the things that I put around myself that I've intentionally said, this makes me happy. This doesn't, it's gone. Like, this is how I do this, how I find the happiness and the faith for it. And so in that way, it's kind of showing you how, but it's also just me being me. And I'm just doing the best I can, just like everyone else.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
I can relate to that too. That's
yeah,
kind of what I'm trying to do here.
just like putting a face behind a disability, because people, even me, like I see disability and I'm like, ooh, that's like the others. That's just that person is dealing with a lot of stuff that I can't relate to or that I don't know, and that's kind of like a whole nother thing.
Right.
But just putting a face to it and saying, yeah, we have different stuff, but everyone has stuff, and like we're just people. We're just trying to make it work.
Right.
The biggest goal.
Cool. All right. Well, so I'm going to wrap this up, or start to turn this into a wrapping up so that I can um, close this out. But I guess where I want to go from this point is, so folks who have gone through similar tragedies, like I said, folks, there's a huge community of wounded warriors out there dealing with those things, and obviously there's people get into car accidents, and other things where they are just hit and facing struggles, whether it's psychological or physical, and usually physical comes with psychological trauma as well. What I guess is your main message to folks like that they can get from your success?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I would say read my books, but that's a joke. And second of all, I would say the power of comparison. And I know comparison, and I agree, and I know that a comparison is not a good thing, but I'm talking about comparing yourself to what could have been. That was very helpful for me, of a way to give me perspective and humble me, of I'm comparing myself, who, is paralyzed from the waist down, but I'm comparing that to what could have been. I'm comparing that to the people that I've interacted with since I've had a disability who don't have control over their arms. And that could have been me. I see people who can't speak or can't swallow, and, that could have been me. And I'm comparing myself to what could have been. And that gives me perspective. That gives me both perspective and gratitude for the challenges that I have. And it might be a little bit more difficult for me to get into almost every place in downtown Richmond where I live. But, I have people around me. I have a community that's willing to help me. People are so willing to help. I have the ability to speak to people and use my voice, and I still have my mind. So just comparing yourself with what you could have been. And that's been very helpful to me. And also trying new things, getting out there, not letting yourself be unhappy, because there's so much potential to be happy.
Yeah. And I like that, because it sounds, how I take that away is, it's like, look, I might not know your story, but I've been through something very challenging, but I didn't let it get the better of me, and I leaned on God for it. And, I leaned on myself, on my own self, to not let it get the better of me. And I rose out of it, and I found these talents, or these other things that I might not have found if I had never gone through what I went through. Maybe I never would have taken my faith with God seriously, or maybe I would have thrown it away cheaply, or whatever, if I hadn't gone through this, if I hadn't gone through this gauntlet like you did. But look at me now, and guess what? I'm normal, well adjusted. I just do things a little bit differently, and I'm famous for saying, look, a normal person's just someone you don't know that well. We all have our quirks and
Nice.
things that we deal with, and that's why I say yours are more visible, but you've had such a positive spin on that. And I'm so happy. Like I said, wife told me that she had seen on Facebook that you had gotten married. I was like, oh, that's so great. I'm so happy for her, and it looks like, you're still kind of living the dream a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, and look, you've got a TV show too. I mean, that's awesome. So, is there anything you'd like to plug while I have you on here? I've got your website on in the comment, or in the title description. I'd said right before you hopped on, I was like, you can probably find your books on Amazon, but I know Amazon can be a little shisty when it comes to selling stuff on there. Would you prefer that people go through your website to do that?
I say, first I'll say, however you can get the story, that's what I care about the most. If you get it off Amazon because it's easier, then more power to you. But if you go on my website, then I will deliver the book with my love and my kiss on the cover. Just kidding, unless you say not. Watch videos, you can read excerpts, you can see pictures, you can follow my I have a weekly comic that I put out. You can sign up for my comic emails. I send it out every Monday, every Tuesday on Instagram. I'll give you the handle in a second. So you can support the author for roughly the same price if you get it from my website, KristinBeale.com, in the comments. Right. But if you get it on Amazon, it's fine. However you need to get the story.
Oh no, but I'd love to give, and not just for you, but anybody, just the author, especially if you have your own method of getting the product to the person. Just it's more supportive to the actual artist who put these things together, and that makes it easier for you to create more, be more of a creator, and that's good. Yeah, I think I put the Instagram in the description as well. So, folks, this is Kristin Beale Gupta, and Kristin Gupta, and she is, like I said, I brought her on here because she has the story that she's told. She has told. I think it's very compelling. I might read the book now. Nice. My wife read your books, and she really liked them. She says hi, by the way. She knew I would be speaking with you tonight. She said to tell you hi.
Awesome.
And yeah, so by all means, folks, read more into this, and especially if you're looking for something, if you're looking for something to hang on to, something faith driven, where somebody has actually gone through a very real and tangible time and kept the faith through it, and where Kristin has strengthened her faith. Maybe you can find something within that story to latch on to. And with that, folks, we will close out for this evening. Tomorrow we'll be doing some reading of the Bible some more, and then Friday, my friend Liz will be on, and we will be talking about women in the Bible, women in the church, and her experiences as a woman to bring to that table. So with nothing further, Kristin, you got anything you want to close with?
Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody be safe, and I will see y'all tomorrow night. And God bless.
See ya.